Hello, everyone. Welcome to our video post SDC, where we finally record our design tips that people requested from the SDC presentation, a slice of communication. I am Azad Afsar. I am still your ALT peer. I've yet to be fired. And to my right is...
Yes, Oliver Marshall. Hello, your CIRPA here. Going on 5 years now. My goodness.
Also yet to be fired.
Also yet to be fired. Yeah. Speaking of fire, we have a lovely fireplace. So I hope some of these tips are useful for you guys. So shall we jump into it?
Let's do that. And if these tips have been useful to you, let us know. We have way more than this. These are the ones that we had planned to do for the presentation. And we have like a bunch left over, so we can collate them and do something like this again as well in the future. Anyway, enjoy. I am searching for a high resolution image of Shimane. Here is Google Chrome. I have typed in Shimane. If I click over to here to images, we are on image search now. If I click on any one of these images on the bottom left, you'll see the resolution, 1600 by 1000 in this case, which is a decent size. If you think of a standard monitor or presentation, you're thinking like 1920 by 1080, which is like kind of standard high definition. But say you wanted something real big. In this case, underneath Shimane, you can click Tools, go over to Size, and you can actually click on here to get like an icon size, a medium size, or large size. If I click on large, that image is still there because it's considered large. If you want something bigger, head over here to Settings. Just going to move our faces over a little bit and go down to Advanced Search. In Advanced Search, you've got all sorts of like fun things that you can play with, which in your own time, please feel free. The one that we're focusing on now is just about image size. You click on this thing, and then you've got way more. And yeah, gee, I wonder if there's anything under 70 megapixels. I doubt it. For today's purpose, let's go for 10 megapixels, which is still absurd. Advanced search, let's check this out. Wonderful. Okay. And let's try this one here. Wow. Okay. So this is 3000 by 5000. That is a big image. So if you want to keep this image, you can right click and save as, but because it's so big, Google Chrome will just show you a preview, which is much smaller. To test that, you can just open image in new tab, and you can see the dimensions here. This is tiny because it's just trying to preview what the actual thing is. So to get it, in this case, we'll probably have to visit the website. There we have a little look through. Ah, here we are. Wonderful. Here he is. I'll wait till he's fully loaded in. Right click, and then open image in new tab again. And then this time, here we go. This is it. This is what we're after. Wonderful. Look at that. You can see the pause. You can see his soul. This is great. Okay. And that's how you find a high resolution image. From here, you can right click and save as. Okay. And the next tip that we want to share is about finding images. So these are just 4 websites for image resources. This is irastoyacom. If you've ever been in Japan or you've looked at like popular brochures or magazines or even online and stuff, this stuff is everywhere. Fantastic little illustrations. You can search now in English, which is kind of nice. Just like that. And then, yeah, most of these images are pretty high resolution and they have like, they're quite thematic. So if you find one character, the other characters have the same art style, which is nice. So that's a great one. The next one is subpngcom. And this is a database full of free images that you can download, which are PNGs. PNGs, for those unfamiliar, is a type of file extension which saves transparency. JPEGs, from my knowledge, do not, which means that if you find one of these image files and it's a true PNG, you'll have no background to it. So you can put it on top of a lot of things much easier like that. The next one is unsplashcom, which again is another database full of free images, which I think, Oliver, you're more familiar with this one, right?
Yeah, Unsplash is more a repository for photographers, like individual photographers to upload their work for free. So you can use these royalty free, and they're good, for example, if you want to show pictures of your home country. There's some very nice high-res pictures. Yeah, Greece, for example, or Italy. So yeah, very nice. Oh, there's some food as well. That it's good for food photos. let's see, North Macedonia.
Excellent.
There you go. Very happy North Macedonians.
Shout outs to the one North Macedonian in Shimane.
Okay, and then the last one is called countryflags.com. There are a bunch of different flag databases online that you can use. This is one that I've used in the past, and it's exactly what it says. It's just a bunch of flags for different countries. What I like about this website is that when you click on it, it gives you different variants of the said flag. So you can download, for example, where is it? Here we go. Different sizes, and then also in different shapes. So if you wanted like an icon, which is only circles, or like wavy ones, or design really ones like this, you can get those here, and you can kind of keep each one a similar size or similar theme, which can be really handy considering how many flags have different aspect ratios. So yeah, that's really useful as well.
So our next tip is removing backgrounds of images. So here we have our lovely picture, high-res picture of Shimane. But we don't really want this gray background, because let's say, for example, I have a circle behind him. I want to put something behind him. So what we can do in PowerPoint, it's actually really simple. If you double click or you go to picture format, you can see this button, remove background. And if you click it, PowerPoint does a pretty good job from the get-go of figuring out what the background is. So it's highlighted the background in purple. You can see though, like down here, it's cutting off a bit of Shimaneko's foot here. So we can mark areas to keep. So now I have his pencil, and I can just squiggle on areas I want to keep.
Oh, you don't have to be too precise.
You don't have to be too precise, and it figures it out. You can see, I think it's cutting off a bit of this. No, that should be okay. So you can squiggle anywhere you want to keep, and it'll update it. You can see the top of his hat, the shrine hat. I'll just squiggle in here, and it figures out. And this is pretty good. I'll add this as well. It's not perfect. You can spend more time and get it more precise. Yeah, and now if I click Keep Changes, voila. Now Shimaneko does not have a background. So our next tip is compressing images. So sometimes, we have a beautiful big high-res picture of Shimaneko, but we don't want it that big because the file size is pretty big. So you can see I have a picture here of Shimaneko and Inyan, the little mascot of Inyan town. And it's about 3 megabytes. Not bad, kind of big. And I've put it into this PowerPoint. And you can see the PowerPoint is about 2.7 megabytes when I put the picture in. Haven't done anything yet, just put the picture in. If you want to compress a photo to save space, you can double click the picture back at picture format. And there's a button here, compress pictures. And a little dialog comes up. And you can choose the resolution here. Now, for most printouts, if you're printing it for a document or like an activity sheet, you can go to print. Print 20. If you're projecting it for a presentation, you can even go to web. Good for web pages and projectors. So I'm going to try web. And first I'll cancel. I'll show you what this picture looks like right now. Pretty high res, right? I'll double click. I'll go back to compress images for web. And you can choose just to have it on this picture. But actually, what I often do is I deselect because I want this compression to apply to all the pictures in my presentation. And you can choose to delete cropped areas. We won't worry about that. So let's click OK. So I've now compressed this picture for the web. And you can see, if I save, the quality is still fairly good. It's not bad if you're projecting this. But if I exit out, let me go back to, now look at the size. It used to be about 2.7 megabytes. It's only 0.3 megabytes now. Big change. Yeah, so that's how you compress images. There's another way that I often use to compress images or to more precisely change the size or resolution of an image. And you can see this is an app called GIMP. the GNU or the GNU image manipulation program. And this is open source, completely free, and a very powerful app. It's very much like Photoshop. So what I'll do is I'll go and open my same picture I just had. Let's go back to, yeah, so here we have Shimane and Inyan. So this is our very big image, as you can see here. And if we go to image, we can look at scale image, this option. And it'll show us the size right now. So you can see the size is like 4,000 by 3,000, for example. If I want to change the size, I can even change it down to, let's say, 500 pixels. And when I click away, it'll automatically change the height because I'm linked. So the height and width are linked, the same aspect ratio. Interpolation, you can leave it as cubic. And when I hit scale, now this image is much smaller. You can see if we zoom up, it's now 500 pixels wide. And what I can do now is just go File, Export As, and I can just save it somewhere here. I can go Shimane and Inyan, small, and then click Export. And you can just leave everything as default and just export. And now when I go back to my folder, I have the big one, and you can see this is 3 megabytes. And I have my small image, and it's only 100 kilobytes. So that's another way. So I highly recommend using GIMP as well, and it's very simple to use.
Okay, welcome back. This is the next tip. This is talking about stretching and scaling. Here we have a Word document that I'm preparing about Shimane. And as you can see, I have 2 Shimanekos. One is not like the other. One has suffered the stretching and scaling demons. If you click on this abomination and then select the picture format in Word document at the top and head on over to reset picture and click this little tab down here, and you want to reset the picture and size. There we go. And then he's back to being Shimane. And so what I advise people to do if you're stretching and scaling in Word document and PowerPoint specifically, you can grab the corner here, and I believe this keeps it in ratio, which means that as you're scaling downwards, it will keep like vertically and horizontally the same, which is kind of the way you want to do it. Try to avoid this madness. Maybe a little bit every now and then is good, but just don't go crazy. And then another thing I wanted to talk about is the use of Control, Shift, and Alt modifiers. When you use Control or Alt or Shift or a combination of them when you're working, you can do a lot of different cool shortcuts. I think most people are probably familiar with like Control C, which is Control Copy, and Control V, which is paste. But if you hold Control and then manipulate things, it can also have an effect. So for example, we have Shimane here, and I'm trying to resize him. So I'll grab him from the corner and he gets bigger. Let's say I try to do this, but at the same time, I hold Control. So now that I've held Control, I'm still making him bigger, but I'm making him bigger from the center, which for different circumstances, this could be quite useful to use. Another way you can use Control, and I use Control like this all of the time, is with your middle mouse. So this wheel here, if you hold Control and you use your mouse in and out, you will actually zoom in and out of the document. If I don't hold zoom, I will just scroll up and down. So as I'm working, I like to scroll in and scroll out, depending on what I'm doing. Another thing you can do is as you're typing, if I was to delete some of these sentences as I'm working, so delete train or delete the, if I'm to hold it down, I delete like this. So let's try this again, but with holding Control. So this time, if I hold Control, it will eat the entire word. So depending on what you're doing, this can actually save a lot of time. Is that if you're trying to select a sentence, for example, usually you do something like this. You can also double click on a word and you can select it like that. Or if you hold Control and click on a word, you will select the entire sentence, which is really useful as well. And it will read, I believe, from one of your full stops or period to the next full stop or period. Okay, and the last tip for using control for something useful is in PowerPoint presentation. Within PowerPoint presentation, what is in your slide is what will be presented. So when you hit F5 or you hit the icon down here to start your presentation, what is on your slide is what will be projected, but this isn't your entire workspace. So for example, if you hold control, like we did in Word document, and pull out, you'll see that in the center, yeah, you've got your slide, but and around it, this is all of your workspace. And none of these things will be projected if they're not on the slide itself. So I've actually used this in a way where if I've got different icons that I want to pull in and pull out, or maybe I want to keep one of the fonts, and I'll put this over here to use for later, or different icons or different shapes where I know like, this is how I've set it up. And then, for example, if I was to duplicate this and make another slide, I could perhaps move some things out, maybe move something in, something like this. And then at the very end, I could select all of this and delete it. It's completely up to you. But I find that having a larger canvas really helps control what's in your presentations. For people making presentations, depending on the classroom, depending on the venue, where you are and what you're doing and stuff, please take a step back. Try to go to like the back of the classroom, maybe like the furthest student in your class, and have a look of how readable, legible your presentations are. This has helped me out a lot because depending on the schools that I go to, they'll have a different size TV, different number of kids. I've worked with like widescreen HD TV, sometimes a monitor, sometimes even a projector, which has a different aspect ratio. So I think it's always good to check in your classroom how your presentations look from a student's perspective or just your audience's perspective.
Hey everyone, so the next tip that I wanted to talk about, I guess it's not really a tip. It's just a bit about presentation design and specifically the use of fonts. So here I have my amazing presentation, as you can see. And I have my topics for today. Oh, here's a wonderful stock photo. Brilliant. Yeah, this is great. So I'm sure some of you are looking at this presentation and yawning already. And so let's think about some things we can do to make it better, because it looks a bit generic, right? It looks like the run-of-the-mill PowerPoint presentation. And one of the first things I'll say is that I'm using 3 different fonts right away. And it's a bit contrived. I've used a bit of clashing colors here. I've used a low res stock photo. In fact, you can see it's still got the stock text on it. But as Azad mentioned, there's ways to find high res photos quite easily. So one thing I would advise is to avoid too many fonts on one particular slide. As you can see, I'm using Comic Sans, I'm using Calibri here, and then I'm using Times New Roman. And specifically, what I'd say is to try avoid, at the very least, using serif fonts. So this is a serif font, Times New Roman. The serif means the little hats on the letters. Try avoid mixing serif fonts with sans serif fonts. So a sans serif, or sans serif, if you want to be fancy, is like Calibri. So you can see there's no little pointy bits on the letters. So instead of this, what I would suggest is let's take the same information and make something like this. So this is the exact same text. And you can see I'm only using one font, Calibri, the most standard font. But I hope you can agree that it looks a lot better and a lot cleaner than what I had, despite me only using one font. So what I'm doing instead is playing with color. So I'm making the topic, the headline green. I'm matching colors. So it's a very simple box here that I have, and I'm making the numbers green. So yeah, and one thing I'd also say is a lot of people, they get nervous. They think, oh, I can't have a white background. It can't be too simple. I'll put one of the stock designs in the back. You can see this fancy thing that comes with PowerPoint. I would personally say, don't be afraid of a white background, or don't be afraid of having it simple, because you want the people to focus on the content, not just on what's on the slide, but what you're actually trying to say. Yeah, so that's my little tidbit for design. So another tip about fonts is, I wonder if you've ever experienced this. You've made a presentation on your computer, then you've put this wonderful font in your presentation, and then you put it on a USB and you go to school or somewhere and you stick it into another laptop, and all of a sudden the font is wrong and the spacing is wrong. Suddenly it looks like this, and you have 5 minutes before class and you're trying to fix it. So what can happen is some laptops have a different set of fonts than others. And if the laptop you're moving to, if it doesn't have the font you've used, then it's going to find an approximation. It's going to go in, but that can mess up the spacing and the size and just not look nice. So what I would recommend is actually in PowerPoint, if you go to File and you go down to Options here, there's a bunch of options. You can go to, where is it now? Save. So in Save, there's actually an option for embed fonts in the file. And if I select this, I can either embed just the letters that I've used in this presentation, or I can embed the entire font. So what this is saying is it's going to save this fancy font that I used and make sure that it looks the exact same on another computer. And so if I click OK, and now I know when I put this on a USB, it'll look the exact same on the other computer. It'll increase the file size, but it'll make sure you don't have any last minute adjusting or any craziness.
And this is the same for Word.
And this is the same for Word as well. All the Office apps can do this.
Okay, and then for the next tip, I want to talk about using companion CDs. If you work in elementary school, junior high school, and high school actually, but I've not used a high school CD, the textbooks that we work with usually come with a CD, which has a lot of stuff in it. It's usually like, it has the same topics and headings, voice clips, movies. But for the purpose of what we're doing today, I want to show off the images that are available on it. I have here Hi Friends CD1, which if you're a senior ALT working in elementary school, you will recognize Hi Friends as the generation before, oh boy, what did we change to? I know we use Let's Try, but that's in 3rd and 4th graders. Anyway, this is an older one for Gonense, Rokonense. And here you can see the files themselves. I'm going to start using this thing. It can take a while loading up because it's an old program. And you might recognize this from the teachers using it in the classroom. And then here, yeah, you've got all the lessons and stuff. All of the elementary school CDs that I've used has a similar format where you've got like a toolbar at the bottom, which is persistent. And what we want to use here is if you head down here, you've got like a few different options. These cards will bring up different lessons, and I pressed the wrong button, so I'm going to pretend like I meant to do that. If you head down here and click this book, you bring up the library basically. And then here you can search by alphabet, you can search by like topic, or you can search by like the Hi Friends book 1 or book 2 lessons. And in any one of these, so for example, yeah, if you head over to sports, you see a list of them here. If you click any one of these, it'll preview it on the left. And you'll recognize these if you use your textbook, that these are the images that they use in the textbook. And that's so useful because we kind of want to use these things as flashcards, or maybe we'll want to use it as for different games that we're creating or board games and such. If you want to use these things, you can edit how it looks over here. And then when you're ready, you can just hit this button to push them over to the right-hand side. And this is kind of like your card list, basically, of what you want to export. So maybe I was doing a lesson on some sports. And I wanted to add some alphabet letters into this as well. This is going to be one of those at the department store.
Great lesson.
Yeah, this is the typical lesson with me. Oh, of course, yeah. Let's have 2 artists for no reason. And then, yeah, so I've got my list of different cards here, and then I want to export them. And so what you want to do is you want to head over to print. And when you hit print, you'll have a little dialog box. Hopefully yours will be larger than mine. And mine's already set by default. It goes to Adobe PDF. You should have a PDF function within these options. If you do not, you can find that online and download it. I think it's probably baked into an Adobe software. And then, yeah, you just hit OK. And then this is probably what I'm going to cut because it takes forever. Okie doke. The next tip I want to talk about is using symbols within your worksheets. So here we have Shimane once again. We have an adorable poem about him. And then above him, you can see that these are symbols. You're probably wondering, what are symbols then? Symbols are a type of font which is baked into Word document, which means that as you're transferring your Word file between computers or something, they will stay as they are because they are baked in, they are acting as a font. And the advantage of that is that when it comes to formatting, copying and pasting, etc., it can be much easier to handle. So for example, if I was making a list here and I wanted to use a fun thing, like maybe I was checking off some students' work or something, I could put these in each line because it acts like a font. I can even change the font style if I really wanted to. I can make it smaller or bigger. And it will stay within the line of the fonts because that's what it is. To access these, all you have to do is go over here to insert, and over at the right-hand side, just below equation, which we're not going to press, that's above my pay grade, is a symbol. And then here you've got some like recently used ones. If you click on more symbol, this will pull up a list of basically all your fonts. By default, it might not put you to Wingdings. It might just put you on one of these lists. And these are all of the fonts that you currently have. If you head to the bottom, oh, not that far. If you head to the bottom, you'll get to the Wingdings. I have 3. I think that's pretty standard. I think all computers with Microsoft Office will have these. And each one of these has an assortment of different symbols. If you click on any one of these and say you want to use one, just click insert here. And it won't kick you out of the screen in case you want to add another one. So maybe we want this one, and we want this one. And then when you're done, hit close and you have those right here, which is very useful. Another cool thing that you can do, you can use the symbols as a type of bullet point. So if you highlight all of this, and I believe it's in,
Should be in home.
Sure, here we go. Here are your bullet point options. And if you just click these by default, it'll just bring up these circles. If you hit down here, it'll probably show you these ones as default bullet library, but you can define new bullet. And then here we go. The first one, you have symbol, and this will bring up the same options as before. So if I head down to Wingdings and say I wanted this to be like a selectable tick box or something, I could make it like this. There we go. And then when you print that out, it'll look like a thing that you can tick. Good stuff.
Okay, so we are back to my amazing presentation. As you can see, we cleaned it up a little bit, simplified it a bit. Another thing I want to talk about is what I often see people do is they'll use one slide as a dump for a bunch of photos. So they'll say, oh, here are some photos from, for example, for me, from Canada. This is my city, so, or that's, I think that's Vancouver. But they'll do this in succession. They'll say, look at all these photos. But if, like Azad mentioned, if you stand at the back of the classroom, you know, some of these may get quite difficult to see for some of those kids. If you're editing the PowerPoint, it's okay. But if you're standing at the back of a classroom, these pictures may be quite small. And the beauty of PowerPoint is there's no limit to slides. So why not just put one picture per slide? And so I always advocate people to not do this, but to just take each picture and put it on its own slide.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Another thing is, if you really have to have a slide with a lot of images and a lot of text on it, what you can do is you can right click and go zoom in. And you can select an area to zoom in and say, hey everyone, check out this picture. You can actually drag and look around your slide like this. And when you're finished, you can just right click and it goes back.
The next tip, and just following on from what Oliver was talking about, is if you have a lot of images, or maybe an image with a lot of small details. And in this particular case, maybe, for example, I have a worksheet that I give to students, and one of the worksheets had a lot of images. This is one worksheet that I made for BLM. And as you can see, this image has a lot of small images on the inside of it. And so if I want to show it off to the kids during the presentation, for example, it's going to be hard to read some of this. If I click here, just so I can see, yeah, it's going to be hard to see any of these kind of details and stuff. So one other way that you can get around that for presentations is to use the morph function. So in this particular case, I have an image here. We're going to zoom in. So if I stretch this out, so it's much bigger, there we go, either side. Here we go. And then if you want to preview exactly what's going on, yeah, of course, you can just hit the slideshow button. But on the left, on your thumbnail here, you can actually see what's going to happen when you hit that button. This is showing you like your actual slide area. And so this looks a lot better to me, just to give the idea of all the individual images. And then I'm going to right click on this. And this is very important. You have to duplicate the slide. And now we're going to move this image to the next position that we want to put it in. So I'm going to push this up. Just for the purposes of this presentation, I'm going to put it right to the bottom, and you can see here how it's previewing. And then what we want to do is the morph function will move from that one position that we had in the original slide to this new position. To do that, head on over to transitions, not animation. And you've got like a host of different things that you've got here that you might recognize. And I think most of them, when you click on them, it kind of gives you a preview of how it will look. Yeah. In this case, we're going to hit morph. And you already saw it there, but just for this purpose, we can hit the button to see it. And now when I hit the next slide, there we go, it will move down. So if you've got an image which has like a lot of detail onto it, you can use this morph to go from one area to the next area. And like Oliver said as well, you don't have any limits on slides here. So let's say we take this image and we make it way bigger, like this, for example. And then we duplicate it again. And then we go down here. Then we duplicate it again. We zoom out a little bit more. Something like that. And it should have saved because I was duplicating the morph functionality. So now when I hit the button, it will zoom in. It will move to the bottom left, over to the right, like that. Okay, and then the next tip is more about organizing your folders for school visits and stuff. If you're like me and you take your laptop with you, you've probably got like a ton of files everywhere, depending on which one you're going to. And maybe like me as well, you've got a school visit where you want to pull from different games and activities from different folders. If you copy and paste your files, it can very quickly become like a bit of a mess. So one thing that I do, which I highly recommend, is in your folder that you're going to visit the school in. So I usually name mine like school visit, this one's school visit 12. I might put the school name and then the date that I'm visiting. Inside of this folder, I want to play a car crash game with some of the kids. And maybe I want to show off my presentation to do with visiting Hiroshima. Usually, I would have these folders prepared beforehand, but another way to do it is if I click and hold the image that I'm going to drag over here. By default, you'll see that it's changed it to move. Now, what we talked about a little while ago was Control, Alt, and Shift, and each one of these are modifiers. So for example, if I hold Control, it's going to make a copy now if I let go. If I let go of Control and hold Alt, it's going to do what's called a create link. So now when I let go, I've made a link to this file. And this link is absolutely tiny because it's just a directory. And if I double click on it, it will open up just fine. It will just send me to that image. So I have access to it. Alternatively, I can always right click and go to open file location, and it will do exactly the same thing. And then this PowerPoint presentation that I wanted to use, I'll do exactly the same thing with this too. And I will hold Alt. And then now in this folder, I have these two shortcuts to other folders in my directory without making tons of copies of the same thing.
Another tip I wanted to share with everyone is how to jump between slides while you're presenting. So what I often see is that you'll be on a picture like this lovely Canadian poutine, but the presenter might say, let's look back at a slide or at the main slide. So let me just go back here. Oh, wait, let me just go forward a bit. Oh, wait, okay, there's poutine. And then they jump backwards like this. And it's a bit of a mess, but there's a cleaner way to do it in PowerPoint. So at the bottom of the screen, if What you're mostly going to be seeing if you're presenting is presenter view. So let me just switch to presenter view. This is what you'd probably be seeing when you're presenting. There's a button here, see all slides. If you click it, you now can see all the slides in your PowerPoint, and you can jump quickly between your slides. And the people watching your presentation can't see this. They're just going to see slide 1, and then they're going to go straight to slide 4. So this is a cleaner way of doing it rather than moving through all the slides like this.
The next tip, we're going to talk about that extra undesirable page that sometimes happens in Word document. So if you're working with Word document and you've got a table in there, you've got a lot of information in there, you crammed it all into one page, but you just, for whatever reason, you have an extra page that you don't want. You can get rid of this by manipulating the margins or the rulers onto the side. So if I click onto this first page over here, on the left-hand side, this is what I'm talking about. This is the ruler, and the light area, I believe, is your working area or the thing where your margins are, and then the darker area is void. Now, margins are very important. You shouldn't get rid of them completely, because printers, the printers that we use in the schools and most printers will not print right to the edge. Those are very specific type of printers. So it's important that you have it there, but oftentimes you can push it a little bit more than what's given to you. So for example, here, if you find the space just at the very bottom, click and hold, you'll see that the dotted line appear. I'm now grabbing the very end of the printing area on that page, and I'm going to pull it down just a little bit. There we go. And that has made it so that the first page now has more room. Given that, the other page will disappear completely, and then you have one page.
So another tip I want to share with all of you is tab stops. Now, this is something that seems a little finicky, but it comes in useful in certain situations. So I'm sure everyone knows when you're typing in Word, let's say Word, like just I have a random word, and you hit the tab button on your keyboard, it'll make a tab, right? And then I have another word, right? And I make another tab, and I'll have another word. Oops, I can't spell banana. Okay, so what I've done is I've made tabs, tab stops in between here. Now, a lot of the time you'll see people, and let's say on the same line, they want something on the left, something in the middle, and then something on the right, for example. What they'll often do is they'll say word, 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 and then they'll press the space bar like this. And then they'll type another word, which is horrible after if you want to position these, because now you've got a bunch of spaces here. So there's a better way to do it, and it's by using tabs. Now, the thing is, these tabs right now are set at default positions. So you can actually, when you press tab, so this word now, tree, is at tab stop 1. If you go next, let's say car, the word car is now at tab stop 2. There's a way to position these tab stops. So what I can do is, let's say you have a word. This is at the left of the line. No tab stop. So this is like tab stop 0. If I come up to the ruler and I click on the ruler, you'll see this line appear with a little L. And let's put it right here. This is a tab stop, and this is tab stop 1. And it's an L, or you can see it's left tab, so it's going to be left aligned. So when I hit tab now, it's going to jump straight to this first tab stop, which is now here. It's not the default value. And the beauty of this is I can take this now and I can move the first tab stop over here, for example, or over here. Where this comes in handy, oh, and by the way, if you want to remove a tab stop, just take it and drag it away from the ruler and it'll grow faint, and you've canceled it. So now it's back to default. Where this comes in handy is if you're making a worksheet. And let's say, for example, you have name, maybe the name of the student, right? And you have a space here. And you think, I want to put a date or something on the same line, right aligned here. How do I do that? Because if you put a bunch of tabs and you type something, you have to be finicky, and you have to play with it like this, right? To get it exactly like, oh, I want to get it at the very end of the line. People often do this, right? But there's a better way, because now we know how to change tab stop. So from here, what I'm going to do is, let's highlight the line. You want the whole line to be highlighted. And I'm going to make a tab stop all the way at the end. It's right here. The problem is it's left aligned. So when I move this, let's make it a real word. Word is yelling at me. Let's say tree. No, let's say date. Let's put the date on the right. This tab is left aligned, so it's going to start here and get cut off. So you can go to paragraph, and at the very bottom there's tabs. This is where you control all your tabs. And so I have one tab right now at 6.5 inches or whatever. This is my first tab stop. You see it's over here, 6.5 inches. The alignment is left right now, but I could make the alignment right. Okay, you can see this little L, it turned into a backwards L because now it's right aligned. So what I can do is when I hit tab, now this is right aligned at tab stop 1, and I can put this right over here. There you go. And now we have dates. And the beautiful thing is Wednesday, you know, whatever, Wednesday the 12th, I don't know, just random. And now on the same line, I have a left aligned and a right aligned thing. So that's a fancy way that you can use tab stops.
Handy.
Yep.
Okay, we've made it to the end of this video. We want to give you one final tidbit, one final little bonus thing that might come in handy. As you can see on the screen, these are the 4 resource websites that we showed earlier. Something that's very useful in Chrome and maybe other web browsers as well. They'll probably have a similar shortcut. If you, by accident, or not by accident, close one of these tabs, or this tab, or this tab, and say you wanted to open them up again, on your keyboard, if you hold Control Shift and then you hit T, it will reopen the last closed tab. And if, for example, I closed all of this and then reloaded my browser and hit Control Shift T, it will open all 4 again. It will remember the last session, which has saved me a few times.
Ah, that's refreshing, lukewarm water. So everyone, I hope you enjoyed those tips. I hope you found some of them useful.
Like I said at the beginning of this, we have way more than this. This was just some of the stuff that we wanted to include for the SDC presentation. If these things have been useful to you and you're interested in learning more, especially some maybe specific like things to do with using GIMP, we would be more than happy to do stuff like that too. So best of luck out there, and be the best Word and PowerPoint processing design geniuses we know that you are.
We know you have it in you.
You, especially you.
Goodbye, guys. Good luck. And I look forward to... What do I look forward to? You guys being successful in the world. I don't know where I was going with that.
Now be free.
Use
the PowerPoint.
Go forth and live your best PowerPoint.